The latest pandemic relief bill includes $1 billion for the Technology Modernization Fund. New ways to modernize legacy IT systems could change the priorities of government chief information officers. David Powner is Executive Director of the Center for Data-Driven Policy and Director of Strategic Engagement and Partnerships at MITRE. He's also former GAO Director of IT Issues. He's writing about the role of the Chief Information Officer in FCW. Thanks for being here, Dave. You write about the importance CIOs can have. What do you see as what can they help accomplish? What's their role here?
Well, when you really look right now, Marjorie, we have many urgent priorities when it comes to IT, supply chain, cyber, legacy modernization. There's improper payments that the CIOs are going to play a large role in. And really, the CIOs need to be the leaders, working hand in hand with the business leaders to tackle legacy modernizations. But there's all these chiefs within the departments and agencies, chief financial officers, acquisition officers. Now we have chief data officers playing a huge role. It's really important that we have alignment of the chiefs and that the executives at these agencies are really unified to tackle the big challenges.
What are you think? I mean, you named some of them. Or what are maybe the biggest challenges facing CIOs?
Well, I think clearly, you can start with cyber. GAO's high risk list came out again. The one very disappointing thing with the high risk list is that cyber kind of slipped a bit. It was downgraded based on the 5 criteria that they evaluate. And then second of all, I think, and we've talked about this before on this show, the legacy modernization challenges are really key. TMF is a good shot in the arm. We got $1 billion to help tackle some of these priorities with cyber and the legacy challenge. But again, it's probably not going to be enough when you really look at the magnitude of the challenges that we face.
That's a good kind of segue into talking about this TMF funding boost. Do you think it changes priorities? Do you think it provides some assistance here?
It shouldn't change priorities. Let's hope that it really gives us a leg up on tackling those priorities. But one of the things that's really important, if you look at the amount of money we spend, roughly 90 to 100 billion, and 80% goes to legacy, we're still spending about 20 billion on new stuff, right? When you look at the federal IT budget. So $1 billion is important, but there are many challenges out there. And I think what's really important is agencies still need to build the business cases, working with business leaders, getting support from their CFOs, working authorization and appropriation committees on these IT budgets. And, these days of we've had relatively flat IT budgets for years. And if we're going to truly tackle the legacy modernization challenges and all the cyber challenges, we need to get away from these flat budgets. And I think TMF is wonderful. It's great that's occurring, but we really need to take some other steps towards ensuring that we have adequate budgets to tackle the many priorities.
In your piece, you also write about the federal CIO. What do you think the role of this position should be? What really is the most important kind of task there?
So a couple things. I think it's a critical role. When you look back over history, the prior federal CIOs have all had many success stories. First of all, I think the federal CIO needs to put in place the policies to support the CIOs at the departments and agencies, and to really make sure that those policies are there that continues to give them authority with what was reinforced with like FATARA. The other thing that I think is really important, if you look at government-wide IT organizations, so you got the federal CIO's office with the CIO Council, but you also have TTS and 18F at GSA, you have USDS out of the White House. I think it is very important that those 3 government-wide IT organizations are aligned on the priorities and they work together. And I'm not saying that historically they haven't, but I think there's an opportunity for those 3 organizations to really come together because they all provide unique skill sets that are really needed to advance mission modernization and take advantage of the technology.
And what about agency CIOs? How should they try to build maybe relationships among themselves?
Well, I think what's really important is, first of all, starting off as, being viewed as a strategic business partner. They need to get to know the business leaders and what the pain points are. And then second of all, these are the 2 priority areas. That's one. And second of all, they really need to have strong relationships with the CFO because it's really about the money. And it's not to downplay the role with CISOs and acquisition officers. And we even have, chief experience officers now. with customer experience officers. And I think that's really important because as we start looking at advancing missions, all those chiefs need to align. But I think it's important that they get out of the gate quickly with the new CIOs coming in and really start with the business leaders and the CFO and build from there.
It sounds like a lot of what you're talking about is really about communicating among groups with business leaders, all sorts of kind of communication. What do you think are the potential benefits there? What can be accomplished by improving that?
Well, I just think if you look historically, Marjorie, at where we've seen successes over the years, where there's been, CFOs and CIOs working together, I think a recent success story, I know you've highlighted this on this show, is Karen Evans working with the CFO at DHS. There were many good things that happened there. So we can point to history where we've had these synergies with the chiefs and we actually have good outcomes and results. We can also go back and look to where there haven't been such great relationships and the mission outcome advancement isn't really where it needs to be.
Thanks so much. One last question. What will you be watching going forward on this issue?
So the big thing going forward is I think when you look at there's a number of things. One is there's a lot of executive orders on, there's one coming out on cybersecurity addressing SolarWinds, supply chain. Those are going to be big things about how these executive orders are actually implemented. CIOs will play a large role in that. There was a OMB memorandum that came out last Friday on improving payment integrity. That's another big area. So again, there's a lot of tasks and asks of the CIOs. And again, if we could build these relationships, it's really going to help tackle these big, urgent priorities that we have facing us.
Thanks so much, Dave.